Welcome back to Drifting Cowboy Podcast. I'm your host, Dillan Weldon, and we have special guest Bobby Braddock phoning in today with co-host Dillan Holliday. Well, we've been reading your book, and I got to say,
Which one?
A
Which,
Life on
which,
Nashville's Music Row,
oh, okay.
and I got to
Good.
say, it's one of the most open and honest biographies I think I've ever delved into.
I felt to have credibility with the book, I'd have to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth about myself.
Yeah, and you did. I feel like I know you on a very personal level after having read it.
Well, good.
But for our listeners who are listening, you wrote, he stopped loving her today, Divorce. Time marches on. I want to talk about me. And if I sat here and listed all of them out, it'd take up all the time. But my gosh, you're the best of the best.
Oh well, I consider myself lucky to have a job that I enjoy because a lot of people don't like their job. And I always love mine, and I just feel like I'm fortunate.
Yeah. So, who would you say was your biggest influences to get into the music industry and songwriting?
Gee, I just have to say, I just love music so much, and I did from the time I was a little tiny kid. I wrote the first song when I was 4 years old, and
Really?
I just knew it was something I wanted to do. So I'd say the influence was because, like most people, I didn't know who the songwriters were.
Right.
so so my heroes when I was coming up, were the ones who sang the songs. And as I got more interested in to actually writing songs, then I became to be aware of you know who wrote the songs. And before I came to Nashville, of course, you know I knew that a guy named Lawton Williams was a great songwriter. I knew that Mel Tillis was, and and then I fell in love with country music when I was probably about 14 or 15. Being in a small southern town, I'd heard it all my life. My brother loved it. I kind of really didn't like it, and then when some of the crossover records came along, uh, I liked those, and I liked you know, Elvis and Jerry Lee, and that got and Johnny Cash, and that got me interested in country music, and I just fell in love with country music, and but I love all kinds of music. I also love, I love rock and roll probably about as much as I do country and R&B as well.
So when the rockabilly scene came along, that's when you really fell in love with country music.
It kind of pulled me into it. Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember? You said the first song you wrote was when you was 4 years old. Do you remember what that was about?
There's a lady in our town, a little uh, little redneck town in Florida, which I love. It's called Auburndale. I mean, now it's kind of part of the urban sprawl between Tampa and Orlando. They call that area Orlampa. The natives don't like that, but that's Polk County, Florida, and it's uh, the leading citrus county in the United States. My father was a citrus grower, and there was this lady. She and her husband came down. They were snowbirds. That's what we call them in Florida. That they would come down and for maybe 3 or 4 months, live in Florida where there's one. Then they go back up north. And there weren't a lot of snowbirds in my hometown, but she was one of them. And her name was Mrs. Tidball, Tidball, and for some reason, I don't know why, I wrote this song called Tidball Sitting Down on the Table. And as I look back on it, I think the melody is sort of like for He's a Jolly Good Fellow. So I not only started writing songs at 4 years old, I started plagiarizing them too.
That's incredible, though. At 4 years old, to be writing songs. Is that about the time that you started playing piano too?
Picking around on it some.
Yes.
And, and my parents had me taking piano lessons, but it didn't really do me a lot of good because the piano teachers didn't want you to play by ear. And that was my inclination. I read a little music, but not, not a lot. I mean, I play by ear. And so anyway, I wrote that song about Mrs. Tidball, and 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 uh, and I was on this this show in Nashville. It's a charity benefit show, and it's called the First and the Worst. And we were supposed to sing our first song and what we thought was the worst song we'd ever written. And Garth Brooks was emceeing it. It's Garth and me and Lee Bryce and Jesse Alexander. And so I sang what I thought was the worst song, and then I sang the first song. It's Tidball sitting down the table. Well, it won for the worst song. They gave me what they call the crappy award. But Garth, so this is a podcast. It's not going out over the radio, right?
No, sir, it's not going out over the radio.
Okay, I can use one what my mother would call a piggy word.
Yeah, you're free to say whatever you want.
Okay, so Garth misunderstood that it was Titball sitting down the table. He thought it was Titball sitting down the table. And the crowd just cracked up, and they thought that was hilarious. So I just went with when I sang it, because I said Titball sitting down the table, and I knew that Garth thought it was Titball, so I sang it that way. So I won the crappy award.
I'm impressed though. 4 years old to write a song, even if it got the crappy award, that's still very impressive to me.
Well, well, when I was little, I was always songs here on the radio. I was changing them around and putting my own lyrics to them, and they weren't better lyrics. It was stupid stuff that you would expect a little kid to come up with. But uh, that was my inclination. I thought that was normal. I thought everybody did it.
Yeah, so your dad, he was a citrus farmer down in Florida, right?
He was. It was a small town, and he was the mayor, city manager, and municipal judge all at the same time for a while there. Sort of like Andy Griffith in the TV show.
Yeah, sounds like Mayberry.
Yeah, it was Mayberry, all right.
So that had to be a big change for you going from Auburndale to Nashville.
Yeah, it was. But when I was a kid, I always thought I wanted to live in a big city. To me, a big city was Tampa. That was a big thrill because it was 45 miles away. And and I always thought I wanted to live in a big city. So I ended up living in it's a lot bigger now than it was when I came here. It's really getting kind of too big for me.
Yeah, Bobby, you got to see what a lot of people like Tom T. Hall called Old Nashville. What was Old Nashville like? Do you have any stories you can share about it?
Oh, okay. Were you talking about the Nashville, the music town, or are you talking about the city overall of Nashville?
Whatever you want to tell us, sir.
Well, it's been a big change in both of them. The city itself is just it's a lot bigger. It's a lot more cosmopolitan. There's a lot of people who have moved here from New York, California. A lot of people from Texas moved here too, and it's a lot more diverse with growth and progress. I mean, it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. The bad part of it is if you haven't been to a certain part of town for 3 or 4 months and go there, it's kind of like a sneak preview of what dementia would be like because you think, where in the hell am I? It just looks different because some of the landmarks have been torn down and replaced with these little skyscrapers that just kind of seem to sprout up like corn. And the music scene in Nashville it's a lot different. Uh, I signed up after when I came to Nashville. I got a job playing piano with Marty Robbins for about a year and a half, and then Marty cut a couple of my songs, and I thought, well, damn, I guess I'm a songwriter because I felt that I could make a living playing piano here because I've been playing touring with a rock and roll band before I came here, and I thought I was pretty good at piano, but I wasn't sure about the songwriting part. And so Marty recorded a couple of my songs. I thought, well, I guess I am a songwriter. So, and I just read that Free Publishing Company, which later became Sony Publishing, it is now, but it was owned by a guy named Jack Stapp and a music guy named Buddy Kellen. And so I signed with Tree, and then I could walk into the office of the guy who owned the publishing company. It's not that way now. It's corporate, and, and if you're negotiating whatever, sometimes it's not going to stop with the person you're talking to in the office. It don't have to come from New York or L.A. or in my case Tokyo, because it's Sony Music Publishing. And so the independent companies, not all of them have gone, but the giants have, and they've been, they've turned into something else because Sony bought Tree.
Yes.
Sony also bought Acuff Rose and ATV and the Beatles catalog, and so it's the biggest publishing company in the world. So it's kind of good to be writing for the biggest publishing company in the world. That has its advantages too.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. It sounds like it was a lot more, and from reading the book, it seems like it was a lot more tight knit back in the day, and kind of once you got in with the in crowd, so to speak, it was easier to get a hold of people than it is nowadays.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it was, I don't know, Music Row was like a small town, and it still is kind of. I mean, gossip still travels fast on Music Row. that hasn't changed, but boy, it really did back then.
Yeah, I want to go back. You were talking about your first big gig was playing piano on the road with Marty Robbins, and you spoke pretty highly of him in your book. He seemed like a really great guy to work for.
Oh, it was fun. I had a great time, and he was probably my favorite country singer. So I don't think he ever knew how thrilled to death I was to work for him. But yeah, I loved his singing. Passed the audition, but after I was on the road for a year and a half, I was hating the road. I didn't like trying to sleep on a bus.
Yeah, I read some interesting stories from the bus, and I think you know what story I'm talking about. Back on the poker table, but y'all weren't playing poker.
I knew you were going to say that.
Y'all were having a measuring contest, so to speak.
That's right. And yeah, and I thought I had won it till Marty said, "What's going on here?" and I think I said in the book something to the effect that he pulled out the proof of why he was everybody called him the Chief.
Do you know where he actually got the nickname Bobby? Was that why?
What, the Chief?
Yeah.
That was kind of common. I know Ray Price's band, they all called him Chief. And I think a lot of them, just called the artist, the star, the boss, Chief.
So, I mean, my gosh, Bobby, the people you've worked with from Marty Robbins to George Jones, what would you say, and Tammy Wynette, who was the most memorable collaborations or artists that you worked with over your career?
That would be kind of hard to say because rather than looking at it as a collaboration, I think of it as, you write a song and somebody records it, and that's like another level, another thing. It's not something I'm involved with. Of course, now with Blake Shelton, it was a collaboration because I produced him.
Right.
And met him, got him a record deal, and produced him for a few years. So that was definitely a partnership, a collaboration.
Yeah, you were
in a good one too.
Yeah, you were very pivotal in his career, and from what I've heard, Brooks and Dunn too.
I mean, I suggested name for the group that Ronnie liked, but they went for Brooks and Dunn instead. And I can't remember what the name was now. You might remember it better than I do. But I was good friends with Kix, but I didn't really have much to do with their career. My friend Don Cook did. He was producing Kix, and Tim Dubois at Arista Records told him, said, he said, I'm producing this guy named Ronnie Dunn. Why don't we put them together? And that's how they became Brooks and Dunn. They didn't even know each other until they were, at the threshold of getting a record deal, and they just kind of came from out of nowhere.
That's incredible that somebody as big as Brooks and Dunn didn't even know each other till right before their fame took off.
That's right. Yeah.
You've written in so many different eras, Bobby. Which one was your favorite?
Oh gosh, that's hard to say because as I look at the music, in each of those eras, there were songs that I loved and songs that I hated, and a lot in between. And that's always been the case. When I hear these people, when I hear these old codgers, some of them younger than I am, saying how they, and it's not always, sometimes it's people in the music business, but it's usually fans, how much they just hate the new country and ask me about it and think that I'm going to agree with them, but I don't really, because there's always been country music that I really liked and some that I didn't like, and I find that in every era. I'm still, somebody comes along and get excited about their music, like Hardy, that record, Wait in the Truck. I heard that, I thought, good God Almighty, this is what country music's supposed to be. It's about real life,
Yeah, that was a great record.
It's a story song. It had no agenda. It was just like a really good movie,
It was really refreshing to hear a good ballad, a good song that tells a story. It seems like we have less and less of those these days, but like Holliday said, your ability to write in all these different eras, it's incredible to me that you were able to evolve with the times and have a hit in 5 separate decades. How does one go about doing that for our songwriters who are listening?
Well, I think you have to listen to the music that's out there, because even if you don't want to write like that, you need to know what that sounds like, and you need to know where you're coming from in comparison to what's out there on the radio or streaming live or however you listen to your music. And because I've just told myself, the past year and a half, I've been fortunate because I've got, at my age, to get 4 cuts by major artists. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And but even that said, I feel like I have some of the, and my publisher tells me too, said, this is good or better than anything you've ever written. And I think, well, why in the hell can't we get it cut? And I feel like, well, it's probably time for me just get in my car and just ride around, and just listen to country radio a lot. Of course, can do that online, go to YouTube. That's another way to do it. And maybe kind of rebaptize myself in it, because it's constantly evolving and changing. Like, I'm blanking on his name, the biggest country music artist right now out there. I'm not remembering his name.
Morgan Wallen?
Yes, Morgan Wallen. Yes, thank you. Don't keep up with his name much because he writes his own songs.
Right.
And so his name's not on the tip of my tongue. And what he's doing, to me, it's rap music put to music. It's rap put to music. Mm-hmm. It meters sort of like rap. And I like it, it's fine, but that's sort of his thing. I tell people that back in the 2000s, I said, I'm probably the only 60-year-old white guy in the world that's going down the highway singing My Hump, because I like rap. I love Eminem. He's one of my heroes. I love what he does, because he raps, but sometimes they have melodies too, and he sings pretty decent. So I'm a huge fan.
That kind of shocks me, Bobby, which I know from reading your book that you're a huge Beatles fan. I just couldn't imagine you singing My Humps going down the highway, but I guess...
My hump, my lovely lady lump. Well, I am. Black Eyed Peas.
That's fantastic. So, you pull inspiration from everywhere. And one thing that you pulled inspiration from in your early days, which was another thing that shocked me just as much as My Humps, was the Ouija board.
Oh yeah, the Ouija board. Yeah, I know. I had my first wife. I think she manipulated me with the Ouija board. I think sometimes what she wanted and what she was saying actually transmuted itself to the Ouija board. It took me a while to figure that out.
Of course, you did have a story in your book, Bobby, about Willie Nelson and what the board told you about him.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you tell that story real quick?
Sure. Yeah. The Ouija board had told me, so my first wife and I, we would sit there with that Ouija board just all the time, and I'm asking, and I was convinced it was, uh, and it may have been, it may have been some kind of departed spirits. I don't know. It's something. There's definitely something to it. And I, for some reason, said, "Well, where did Willie Nelson come up with crazy?" And it said he was lying in bed, looking up at the ceiling, and he thought, "I'm crazy," and that's where the song started. So I had met him a time or two, but when I had his ear, was at this party, and he was shared some of his cannabis with me. And then I told him that story, and I said, "Is that true?" And Willie doesn't talk a lot. I mean, very he's very thoughtful. He's pretty cerebral, cerebral as a pothead can be. And he kind of rubbed his chin. He said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, that is true. That's how he wrote it."
That's wild. It really caught me off guard, though, when I was reading the book and saw that some of your earliest inspirations did come from you and Sue playing that Ouija board. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you got to meet Willie and talk about that. And I also read in there that you knew young Christofferson when he was just starting out as a janitor.
That's right. That's true. And we would do our demo sessions. Of course, those listener demo is where you put together a presentation of your song and try to make it sound as much like a record as you can. And everybody told me that my demo sounded like records, and I think that's why I ended up, getting into doing some producing.
Mm-hmm.
But we did our demo sessions then at the Columbia Recording Studio, and Chris was he was a janitor there. I mean, here's a guy who was an Oxford scholar. He had been in Vietnam, a professional helicopter pilot. He started all over. He was like about four years older than me. He started all over in Nashville working as a janitor. And I think part of that was because he just wanted to be as close to the music business and the goings on in the music business.
Right.
And he would come there and ask me about songs when we were doing a demo session in there. Had this push broom. He would rest his push broom and sit down with me a couple of minutes, and I would tell him all about it. So that's how I got to know him. And he was and just as nice a guy now as he was when he was a janitor.
While we're in that topic of the era and of the Highwaymen, Waylon Jennings would record a song you wrote called Revelation.
Right.
We learned from your book you had a dream. Can you take us
Yes.
through that dream and what inspired the song Revelation?
Well, it was related in a way to a dream, but in my dreams I would have this dream about these two moons in the sky, and in the dream I don't know why I found that to be frightening. It kind of freaked me out, and I just guess it just seemed so just so bizarre. It just kind of I wake up, it was almost like having a nightmare. And Revelation, which is a song about this guy that is experiencing what seems to be end times, and then at the end of it, towards the end of the song, he's in a motel having sex with somebody else's woman, and he hears all this, sees this bright lights and everything. He goes out there and looks at it and says, "All at once the clouds rolled back, and there stood Jesus Christ in all his glory." And I realized the saddest eyes I'd ever seen were looking right at me. And then he wakes up and realizes that he was dreaming, and the last line is, "If I never go to hell, Lord, it's because you scared it out of me." So this is a funny thing to talk about, though. I mean, I was kind of raised as a fundamentalist, a fundamentalist Christian. And this was a part of my transformation into believing in God, maybe believing more in God but not so much from the Bible. I mean, there were some things about the Bible I had a problem with, but because I think if God, if there's a God out there, I think He's going to be so much better than the rest of us. That is, you know, uh, I mean, there's absolutely no question, that God is going to be superior if He created the universe,
Yeah.
and so that became my religion sort of, and the old fundamentalist, being scared all the time religion became a part of my past. And then I had a dream that night after I wrote the song, and those two moons are in the sky, and they fused together into one, and I never had the dream again.
That's an incredible story behind that song, and such a good song too. That's one of my favorite ones that you wrote. You've
I
written.
have a tendency, I have a reluctance to discuss religion or politics publicly because it's always controversial, and I run from controversy. I just don't like it.
We're right there with you.
Going back to guys like Christofferson, did you ever do any co-writing with Christofferson?
Never did, and he didn't do a lot of co-writing either. He's kind of like Shel Silverstein. Shel Silverstein came to me and I think he was an incredible songwriter and poet. And he wrote a lot of really great children's books too. He was a genius. And he came up to me at the Bluebird. I never knew him very well. He asked me, he said, "Bobby, will you write with me?" I said, "Well, hell yes." I mean, I didn't even know he co-wrote. I don't think he did. But sadly, he passed not too long after that, so I never had the opportunity. But no, I never wrote with Silverstein. Never wrote with Christofferson.
There is
No.
someone you did get the opportunity to write with, Bobby, John Prine. John Prine is one of those beloved names, and you wrote the song Unwed Fathers with him. What was it like writing with, the writer's writer?
Oh, it was great. I had there's a girl about that time that I was sort of when I was between marriages, and she was a huge John Prine fan, and she knew Prine, and she wanted so badly for Prine and I to write together that she told John that I really wanted to write with him, and they told me that he really wanted to write with me. I mean, of course, I would like to write with him, but I never said that, and I'm sure he never said it either. And so that's how we got together. And he came up to my door. I'd never met the dude before, but he came up to my door, and he had his guitar and notebooks. And he said, well, he's just real laid back, sweet guy, very laid back. He said, "Well, I got a bunch of ideas here, and see if it's something you want to write." And I looked at it, and I saw Unwed Fathers. Then I saw we had written down Children Having Children. I said, "I love both of these. I think they go in the same song." He said, "Well, let's write it." And so we wrote a song called Unwed Fathers. And a lot of people recorded it. Maybe my favorite recording, I mean, it's probably Prine himself, but Johnny Cash recorded it, Gail Davies recorded, Tammy Wynette recorded. Her version actually got in the charge. And we wrote another one. Nothing ever came to that, but it was great to get to write with him.
Do you know why?
Great guy.
Sorry. Do you know why in the Tammy version she did change up the lyrics?
I'm not sure what she changed. I don't remember that happening, and I guess it must have been if you say that. But Prine and I had two different versions of the song, and 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 this and the version I liked best. I mean, most of it was mine, but some of it was his. I liked better than what I did, and but he had his, and the melody's different. And I like my melody better, but now looking back on it, I like his melody better. I think it was better. And if I were to do it out now, I think I would, like at a club or in the round thing, I think I would tend to want to do Prine's version. And so there were two different sets of lyrics, not a lot, but a few. And she may have done the one that was different than what you were used to hearing. I wasn't even aware of that. I know her then husband, George Ritchie produced her on that.
So that would have
That,
been
that,
that would have been after
Billy
she
Sherrill.
stopped working with Billy.
Yes.
You worked quite a bit with Billy Sherrill, correct?
He was a blessing in my life, I tell you, because I think maybe about 30% of my hits were produced by Billy Sherrill, and he was he was an introvert, almost to the point of being a hermit. He didn't like to have many people, so I always felt that I was blessed, have been allowed to come into Billy Sherrill's inner sanctum, because not many people did. And I just got with him regularly, and he liked my writing. He cut just so many of my songs.
Yeah, I talked to Mr. Gary Gentry who connected us, thankfully, and
Good guy.
he talks very highly of Mr. Billy Sherrill. He says that he was a straight shooter. He would tell you just how it was if he liked your song or if he didn't like your song. And the way he talks about him, Billy would tell you, even if he liked your song, he would tell you that you could do better.
He would change your song sometime without asking you, and I wouldn't stand that. There's a lot of people, but usually when he did that, he made it a better song. I had a song called "We're Not the Jet Set" that George and Tammy recorded, and the best line in that was on the fade out. And it was not my line; it's Billy's. It was the Jones and Wynette set ain't the Flaming Suzette set. I thought, well, shit, that's brilliant. Billy one time changed the line of mine that I did not like. I tried to talk him out of it, but he wouldn't hear it. It was on a song called "Golden Ring" that I wrote. I wrote with Rafe Van Hoy, and my line was a small 2-room apartment. Let's see, as they fight their final round, he says, "You won't admit it, but I know you're running around." And Billy changed it to, "I know you won't admit it, but I know you're leaving town." And I said, Billy, I said, "I know you're leaving town." That sounds like he went down to Springfield for a few days or something. It doesn't sound sad. It doesn't rip your heart out like I know you're running around. He said, "Yeah, but you can't rhyme a rhyme with the same word." I said, "It's not the same word. It's final round and running round with an apostrophe before round, because the word is around. It's round and around. They're two different words." He said, "No, to me that translates to the same word." So when I sing it out, I always sing, "I know you're running around." But he was brilliant, like on Golden Ring. I mean, he added his touch at the end there. With the demo, we didn't, at the end of it, we didn't have what Billy put on the end there. It was "Golden Ring" at the very end. That was him.
Well, wasn't it also Billy who got you and Curly Putman to write the recitation at the end of "He Stopped Loving Her Today"?
Well, we already had one, and he wanted the woman to come back. Well, we already had it, so we kind of used what we had before, but threw away. And he hadn't heard it. I have to say, great minds, think a lot.
Yep.
Just kidding.
No, Billy Sherrill was a great mind for sure. After hearing all the stories that I've heard from guys like Gary,
Yeah.
it seems like Billy Sherrill was really a genius when it came to production
He
and
was.
the music business in general.
Yeah, he was very hands on as a producer. He had so much to do with the arrangements and all that.
And you got to work with guys like, obviously, Curly Putman was a big person that you worked with. He was a song plugger for you in the beginning, and then y'all ended up writing together a lot, writing "He Stopped Loving Her Today," and then you bumped elbows with guys like Red Lane. That's just so incredible to be able to work with guys like that.
Yeah, Red was kind of a songwriter too. He was, because he's a good musician. Curly and I were very different. I think that's why we worked out pretty well as co-writers. His approach to things was different from mine. As far as him being an influence on me, I don't know that anybody hardly had that much of an influence on me. Maybe earlier in my life when I was in formative years, but he was a mentor in that he took up time with me, and he became an advocate of my songs. He was actually getting songs recorded that were hits, but he was still a song plugger. And when he pitched songs, he was very fair about it. It's not that he went out there and pitched his songs. I mean, he'd pitch one of his if he thought it was a good song, but it wasn't a priority with him. He was very up and up,
Right.
very, very honest guy. Good man.
There is a question that I have to ask you that I'm not sure that you're going to give me the answer to. And that's about Would You Catch a Falling Star? I'm wondering if that song was written about anyone in particular, or if
Yep. Yep.
it was?
Yes. I'll never say, but see how I can put this without saying. My second wife, best girlfriend, was dating this guy, and he'd had wasn't a big star, but he played in a band with a superstar, and he had a couple of hits himself, not huge. One was pretty big, and so I was thinking about him. Said, I'm trying to think. I'm not really good at remembering my old lyrics unless it's one I sing out a lot. He had a silver-plated bus and a million country friends. Now there's just a few of us, and he drives a little van. And that's what this guy's doing. He did have a bus touring, and then he came down to driving a little van. And I mean, a lot of the characteristics were not necessarily him, but I was geared in on him while I was writing the song.
Right.
And some people had asked me about George Jones because, he was drunk and all that. And I said, no, George Jones was never anything but a big star. Even in his driest years,
Yes, sir.
even when he had some coming down, he was still a big star always. That was definitely not about him. A lot of people thought it was.
Well, you've at least given us a few clues, so when I get back to my house, I'll be drawing lines across the walls, and
Too many.
I'll be trying to figure it out.
That's all I'm going to say about it.
Bobby, you've had virtually everyone who you could ever dream of record your songs. Who's an individual who never recorded one of your songs that you wish would or could have?
Well, I'd be thinking in terms of present time, really. I mean, I'd love it if Jason Aldean would record something of mine, or Luke Bryan. Anybody out there who's hot, I would love that.
Yeah.
Chris Stapleton, I'd love to have him record one of my songs. He usually records only maybe one song on an album that somebody else wrote, because he's a really good writer himself. But the one song he records has a tendency to be the big hit. So I wish he'd record maybe more than just one. He Tennessee Whiskey probably was the biggest thing he ever did, and he didn't write that. Though he could have been a co-writer, because he changed the melody around in a good way. But I think he did it without asking permission, so he never asked for part of the song. But Dean Dillon, who wrote probably half of George Strait's hits, now probably more than that, probably 70% of them, he wrote that with a lady who's no longer with us, named Linda Harwell. And Chris just turned it into more of a kind of a bluesy sort of thing. And originally, the way they had it was just strong country. And then his Millionaire was the only song on that album, and that was a big hit from that album. And Kevin Welch wrote that. I remember looking at the charts one week to see how many of the songs on the chart were written by one person alone. Because when I came to this town, the big majority of songs were solo. There were co-writes. There were probably maybe 30-40% of the songs on the charts. Co-writes are like 99% now. And I found one song on the charts that was not co-written, and it was Millionaire, Kevin Welch. And he wrote that probably 25 years ago.
Yeah, so you mentioned guys like Chris Stapleton and some of these newer songwriters. Who are the ones that you maybe see as carrying on the torch as the great Nashville songwriters, or that maybe just the guys that you enjoy writing with or would like to write with?
Well, that's a tough question. I mean, some of them who are writing their own songs, which would be like Morgan Wallen, would probably fall into that group. Maybe Hardy. Eric Church is an awesome writer. He writes a lot by himself. Sometimes he co-writes too.
I do think that a Bobby Braddock Hardy collaboration would be incredible.
I don't know if Hardy would want to write with anybody else. He has his little group. I think that he does. I'm not in that little group, but he does write some things by himself. He's one of the very few.
If you're enjoying this podcast, be sure to check out Bobby's books, A Life on Nashville's Music Row and Down in Auburndale, which are available on Amazon.
Did you ever have any run-ins with Tom T?
Well, I wasn't an intimate of Tom T's. Knew each other and say howdy and talk to each other. When we saw each other, I didn't know him really well. I always admired him as a songwriter. He's written some great stuff. I mean, one of my favorite lines was a song he recorded. I think it was a B-side. It wasn't even a hit. It was back when we were young. Everybody came to see us. Everybody wanted to be us back when we were young. I think that was his life because he married this lady who was musical named Dixie, British lady, and they had a lot of friends. I wasn't part of that crowd, but they had a lot of people who came to see him, and they lived the good life and of celebrity and all the stuff that goes with it. So that's a song I think that came right out of his life, and always, he was a great storyteller, great story songs.
At this moment, as you look back over your life and career, what would you consider to be the most fulfilling aspect of your journey that's got you here?
Probably because I always felt that I could produce records as well as I write songs, maybe even better. And I thought, man, if I had focused just on that, I could have made more money, and it's very fulfilling. I love doing that. Because my strength as a producer is as an arranger. I would come up with things for, like on Blake's hits. One of them, I mean, they're buried in other songs. He's had so many hits over the years. One was a song called "The Baby,"
yes,
and in the studio. And for some reason, I just started going around singing because it was about this guy and he was the baby of the family, and his mom was older for a mom,
right.
And towards the end of the song, she dies, and I was just going around singing. For some reason, it was not a part of the song. Mama's died and gone to heaven. And I went down to the piano and did that, and every lick on it is a different chord. It's chord, 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 chord. Very churchy sounding. And Blake said, "What's that?" I said, "I think that's the intro to your song." He said, "Shit, I love that." And I said, "I think get strings in here and do that as the very end of the song." He said, "That'd be great." So that's one of the aspects of me as a producer, as an arranger. And I really love that. So to get back to your question, I think the most fulfilling life was to be able to meet this young man, go out and get him a record deal, and produce a few big hits with him. That was the most fulfilling thing, beyond a doubt. Because I had one thing as a producer I did not have as a songwriter. I don't care how big you are as a songwriter, you don't have a lot of power, maybe a little bit. Harlan Howard probably had a little power. But producers, got a lot of power. A lot of power. I just had one artist. So I did things people tell me that no other producer had ever done. I treated people the way I wanted to be treated as a songwriter. I treated songwriters that way. When I heard their song, I don't care if there's somebody in Festus, Missouri I'd never heard of. I would get in touch with them, thank them. If we didn't do the song, I'd let them know. People told me, well, most people, if they don't do your song, they don't tell you. But I did, And I thought of all those ways that I thought producers that maybe dissed me a little bit. Want to I wanted to make sure that I didn't do that. But yeah, I love that process. I reached a point. I felt like I was not writing many songs anymore. And I told Blake, I thought, I think I want to go back just to writing songs, not producing. And he said, "Well, can you at least stay with me to a greatest hits album?" And I said, "Okay, we'll do that." And of course, a new label head came in from California and fired me, And we just had a huge hit, Sun Beach, and the one that came out after that was in the top 5. And I was going to quit anyway. This was my last album. But he kind of messed with my swan song, He came along and got me out of there before the whole. I mean, I think 3 or 4 things I'd done with Blake on that album ended up on the album. But they told Blake, saying, "You got to bring somebody in here to do the rest of the album, or we can't support your music." And they were saying this to a guy who had some hits too. Anyway, that guy got fired a year later, and I have to say I smiled real big when that happened. Asshole.
I'd say you did very well, Bobby, because Blake Shelton went on to have a huge career, and you were right there at the beginning with them, and produced some of my favorite songs of Blake's. So
Old Red was my favorite that I produced with him.
That's probably my favorite. I would say my favorite Blake Shelton song as well.
He presented that song to me. Hoyt Axton had sang it to him a cappella, and Blake worked up a little funky thing on his guitar and sang it to me. And I said, "We got to cut that." And I said, "You got to play guitar." And he said, "Oh, I'm not good enough to play guitar." I said, "You're good enough to play what you just played then. It's great, And yeah, it was a great experience. And Blake doesn't forget those who helped him. He's been great. I don't think there's ever been an event for me that he didn't show up at or participate in when he was asked.
Yeah, that's great. I saw that he cut his honeymoon short to be at your induction into the Hall of Fame. So
he did. He and Miranda were there, cutting their honeymoon short. Yeah, and he did. I was given the Chris Gustafson Lifetime Achievement Award that September, and he was there for that.
Well, I have one final question for you. What message or word of advice would you like to leave for your fans and aspiring songwriters who look up to you?
I would say if you really believe in something, and this applies to a lot of things other than songwriting, if you really believe in what you're doing, don't let anybody talk you out of it.
Yeah, I did read that there was a fair amount of that in the beginning of your career. People who may have thought you were a little crazy for moving off to Nashville from Auburndale, and I know.
Oh yeah. My best friends said they thought I'd be back, in a few months. I didn't have a lot. There wasn't a lot of people who had a lot of faith in me. My father was. I mean, he was getting close to 60 when I was born, so there's like a double generation gap there. And there's nothing in his life experience that can make him understand me going off and having a career in music.
Right.
He wanted me to, participate in the family orange groves, and I knew I did not want to do that. I used to. I never said it to him, or he would have slapped the shit out of me. But I used to, in the summertime when I work in these orange groves, I called it the green hell of P.E. Braddock's orange groves. Get up in a tree, and a good chance you're going to, have a snake looking right at you. It's how it is when you're brought up in the tropics.
Well, I think I speak on behalf of the entire world, especially the country music industry, when I say that we are so glad that you became a songwriter and a producer and affiliated with the country music industry rather than a citrus farmer, because I mean, you're at the top, Bobby. There's nobody who's written a hit in 5 decades like you have. You're an incredible songwriter and an incredible person.
Well, thank you so much. And I don't think I would have ever gotten an award for growing the best navel oranges. Not that I have anything against navels,
I think you would have been a great navel orange farmer too. I think you would have been great at anything you done. But I'm so glad that you did choose to become a songwriter. But we don't want to keep you too much longer, Mr. Bobby. I know you're a very busy man, but I want to ask Holiday if he has any questions left or comments.
Sure.
I'm someone, Bobby, who loves a good dark song.
A good dark song, D-A-R-K?
Yes, sir. What's the
Yeah.
darkest song you've ever written, and if it was never recorded, who do you think could have been the person?
Oh my God, that's a great question. I'm not sure I have a great answer to that.
That's all right.
It's not it's not something I've really thought about. But I've definitely written some dark songs. Let me think.
Early on, you had one called like "With a Smile on His Face" or something like that.
What a funny way to die with a smile on his face. Yeah, Jack Barlow. That was pretty dark. Revelation was kind of on the dark side too.
One about pushing an unfaithful woman off of a mountain.
You pushed me too far.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was dark as it was just bizarre. I mean, why would I write a song like that? I do not know. Seemed like I had a proclivity for killing women back then or something. Well, that was a woman killing a man, though. That's right. Furman Husky. Give me a few seconds. I got to think of a really, really, really dark song. When I was taking piano lessons, because I like to play by ear, my piano teacher let me at the piano recital play a song that I had composed, which was good of her to let me do that. And the name of that song was "The March of the 10 Dead Men." So I don't know that. I think that's dark, but it didn't have any words to it. but you know, it sounded very, very dark.
The ominous melody.
Ominous melody. And I tell you what, I may just so you and Holiday will know, if I think of the darkest song ever that you might have heard, well, you said that it never been recorded. If I think of the darkest song, I'll let you know. And there's probably one I've got recorded that was just really, really dark too, you know.
Yeah, we'd love to hear it. We both enjoy a good dark song.
Even if it was recorded, we'll take it.
Yeah.
Do what now?
Even if it was recorded, we'll listen to it.
Okay. All righty. I'll see if I can think of that. Yeah. I like the questions. Oh, I think maybe I thought of the dark song. We didn't even get into my pathetic recording career. I always tell people I've had 5 major recording deals, which shows you how easy it used to be to get a record deal.
Oh, wow.
And the darkest song may have been a song I recorded called "Blow Us Away." It's about the world blowing up, nuclear holocaust.
Oh, yeah, that does sound very. Was that recorded by anyone?
Well, it doesn't count. It was recorded by me. Somehow it sold 40. I think it was 20,000 copies. I don't know who bought it, you know, but anyway, that was one of the songs. That might be the darkest.
Yeah,
That's about as dark as you can get.
That sounds pretty dark.
That includes that's wiping out every damn body, everybody.
Yeah, you can't get much darker than wiping out the entire world. I couldn't imagine how to write one any darker than that.
That's right. That's as dark as it gets.
Well, Bobby, thank you so much for letting us interview you. And if you ever need anything, you know how to get a hold of me. And I know Holiday appreciates it as well.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Guys, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. I think, Dillan, I think you're from Louisiana, right, originally? And Holiday, where are you from?
I'm from outside of Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh?
Yes. Yes,
all right. One of my favorite movies, talk about dark, and I'll give you a little story that goes with it, and then we'll get off the phone. Was filmed near Pittsburgh. You know where I'm going here?
Is it The Deer Hunter?
No, that was one too. This was The Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah, I should have guessed that one.
Yeah, and so I flew with my daughter out to San Francisco in 2019. What they have out there, it's a huge thing, and have several 100,000 people show up for it. And it's called the Hardly Bluegrass, some kind of festival. In other words, there might be a little bluegrass, but there's a lot of rock and roll, a lot of regular country music and R&B. It's just a huge festival, biggest crowd I ever played in front of. And so we went out there for that. Robert Plant was on the show, and so was Steve Earle. So I knew Steve Earle, not real well, but I knew him. But I never met Robert Plant before. But I loved the group, and loved Stairway to Heaven. So here's Steve Earle trying to tell Robert Plant who I was and what I'd done. He said, I ain't no fucking Bobby Braddock. You laughed at me about fucking Bobby Braddock. and he said, let's make a picture. And my daughter said, I think this is historical. Can we do this? And I said, yes. So she got this picture of us standing there together. And when I saw the picture, I got to send it to you guys. I mean, I have a tendency, because I got scoliosis, I kind of look down in a way. And Plant was looking down too. And he had a pretty big beard. And then Steve Earle had a beard that went down to his waist. And we were there with our arms around each other. And when I posted it on Facebook, I captioned it Night of the Living Dead, because that's what it looked like. It'd be hard to say who looked the worst, but it was it was scary.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna have to send me that picture. I got to see that.
It's a great picture, and you'll see what I captioned it that. I'll send it to you.
Yes, sir. Well, we appreciate it, Mr. Bobby. We ain't going to take up any more of your time. Me and Holliday both appreciate so much you taking this time and talking to us and answering our questions and giving us a glimpse into the life of Bobby Braddock, the great songs, and your time as a producer. You've just done so much, and we're so thankful for you and appreciative of everything you've done for the industry.
Thank you. That's very nice of you to say that. And
hopefully we can do it again one of these days.
Okay, I had fun. I appreciate it, and I look forward to it.
I hope you've enjoyed another episode of Drifting Cowboy Podcast. I'm your host, Dillan Weldon. Of course, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, DILLONWELDON. And you can find my co-host, Dillan Holliday, on all of those platforms as well, DILLAN. HOLLIDAY. And of course, be sure to check out Bobby's music and his books. Thank you.